Hey, what's up guys? So I wanted to make a quick video with just some kind of behind the scenes and tips and just walking you through my process of how I film B-roll, and specifically because if you watch my channel at all, you already know a lot of my B-roll involves coffee, making coffee, and you also know that the way I make coffee is kind of involved. So I'm just going to show you guys and talk to you a little bit about how I go about filming myself making coffee for those coffee B-roll shots that I do. So before we get started, just a couple technical things. I filmed everything on my Canon SL2, which does not have in-body image stabilization. It does not have digital image stabilization. I did use warp stabilizer on some of the clips. On some of them, I just left them handheld. I'll talk about that later. In the individual clips, I also filmed everything with the Sigma 24mm f1.4 art lens, which is also the SO2, and the Sigma 24mm is what I'm filming on right now as well. I filmed everything at 60 frames per second. So with making that B-roll sequence, a couple of things. First, it is the week of Halloween is coming up in just a couple days. So when I filmed it, I wanted to do kind of like an eerie, spooky kind of vibe to it. Nothing too crazy, but you know, you'll see hints of it throughout that sequence. The lighting that I used, I had the light source actually behind my 6D, which was the camera that I had on a tripod in front of me. So the scene was lit well for that camera. For the SO2 that I was holding, everything was actually backlit, which lended itself to that kind of like creepy, eerie vibe that I was going for. I knew that I was going to bring a lot of like shaky, handheld looking footage into that. So that played a big role in how I did this, because I didn't have to necessarily be too perfectly still with everything, because I knew that a lot of the shots weren't going to need to look like they were on a tripod. I wasn't going to want them to look like they were on a tripod. But at the same time, that presents challenges as well, because you want to make sure that with handheld shots, they're not too shaky, because then, you know, even trying to put stabilizer on them in post, it ends up looking bad and warping. Having said that, the very first shot in this sequence goes completely against everything I just said. First of all, I was not trying to get this shot. I had just hit the play button on my camera and was getting the camera into place where I wanted to have it for the shot that I was planning to get, which was the first pouring sequence. But as I was going back through the footage, I just, you know, happened to scrub past that, and as I saw it, it gave me that kind of feel that I was going for. You know, the camera was moving and kind of had that almost Dutch slant kind of feel to the framing. And anytime that you're not framed perfectly straight, it just sets the viewer a little bit, makes them a little uneasy. And that's exactly the vibe that I was kind of going for with this. So I ended up just keeping that shot that was never supposed to be anything. It just kind of ended up working for what I wanted to go for it. The first and second shot, actually. I applied a ton of warp stabilizer on there, way more than I would usually use. But I liked it in that shot because it, again, just kind of made you feel uneasy and weird, and there were strange motions going on. Right at the beginning of the second shot is focused on the Halloween towel in the background just for a second right before it pulls back, and focuses on, you know, what I'm actually doing in the scene that I was about to be filming. So again, that was another accidental shot that I kept in, and I just really liked it. So in this shot, the very first time that I'm pouring any water, I'm pouring in a circular motion, again trying to just get the viewer into this vibe of being uneasy and thrown off a little bit. The shot itself was not dynamic. I was holding it in one place, pouring the water. There wasn't coffee in there yet. I was just rinsing the filter, so visually there wasn't a whole lot going on. So I zoomed in a little bit so that I could get a nice rotation going, so that you're as a viewer, your view is spinning in the same direction as the kettle is going around while it's pouring the water. Just again, kind of also immersing you into the video, but making you a little uneasy. So the next shot is right when kind of the beat drops. It becomes a little more urgent, and it's right with a big crash. So I wanted to have something where something was happening, something was changing in the video as well. The very first shot of water actually hitting coffee grinds. That's something that if you do it right, like you probably didn't notice that was the first time that the water was hitting the grinds. The viewer doesn't need to know why they feel that. You just need to make them feel something. And when I filmed the shot, I was just holding the camera in one spot. So just to make it a little bit more dynamic, I added just a slow zoom in post. So the next shot is really more story dependent than anything, because at this point you have seen water coming into the top of the grinds, but you don't really know what's happening after that. So the next shot is going down into the carafe, and that's when you see the first drops of coffee actually dripping through and hitting inside of the carafe. So again, this is really a story motivated shot showing you we are making coffee now. When I'm filming myself, I can only get so far away from what I'm doing. So a lot of times I will focus on something else and then film the camera, because I am using autofocus in all of these shots. So film the camera kind of not really hunting, but racking the focus to where I want it to be at the end of the shot, and it gives it this nice, almost really cinematic feel of focus racking. So yeah, we're just playing with the focus and going back to the top of the bed of coffee and pouring the water over it. So then that next shot starts out back at the bottom with the carafe, and we see the coffee dripping through some more. And then we have the first shot going from the bottom all the way up to the top in one sequence, kind of connecting everything, because we've seen the top view, we've seen the bottom view of the carafe, and this kind of connects everything. Then the next shot is another shot where the music gets urgent again. One thing that I do a lot when that happens in music is I'll go from, you know, a clip that is in slow motion to a clip that is either regular speed or sometimes even sped up a little bit to kind of convey that urgency even more. So now we have a sped up shot, and it's no stabilizer on this shot. It's shaky. Anytime you have shaky footage, that also gives the viewer a little bit of a sense of urgency or rushing or hurrying. So then I have a quick panning shot of the whole setup, but without me pouring, and this allows me to focus a little more on the actual video and the pan, because I don't have to be pouring at the same time. All right, and then one last shot of actually pouring water over the coffee, and with this one, the shot is more dynamic itself as well. We play with the focus, and then we actually move the camera around after the water is finished pouring. Then we have a quick close-up shot of the carafe. We see that it's filling up, the coffee's still dripping, so we know that time is passing, and we can tell that we're getting closer to the end. And in this next sequence, the music is kind of building up to the climax, and there's, you know, like a drum roll and stuff. So I did another shaky shot, full speed, and motion, so kind of like almost building up to something. And then the music gets kind of a gentle feel again, the drums drop out, and we have this smooth pan going across. We see that the coffee's done. We have a coffee mug there, and we know that coffee is ready. And that's, yeah, kind of how we end the video. Showed the process, and then at the very end we see the finished product. Yeah, so that was a look at how I film myself for B-roll, and specifically here with coffee B-roll. I didn't really talk about very much. I mentioned a few things, but I didn't really talk about how I edit the video. Maybe if you guys are interested, you can tell me below and I can talk about how I go about editing B-roll sequences like that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have anything that you think I completely missed, or you disagree with the way that I film or my style, let me know in the comments below. If you did like it, if you got anything useful out of it, give me a thumbs up. And if you like these kind of videos, talking about cameras, talking about coffee for sure, then hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell icon so you can get notified of all the videos that I make here on this channel. Thanks, guys.